The following podcast is a W2M Network original production. Visit W2Mnet.com for all of our other great podcasts, plus news, reviews, articles, and opinions from the worlds of wrestling, video games, football, and entertainment.
Good evening, everybody, or morning, or... insert time of day here. This is a podcast, so does time really matter? I would guess not. But what does matter? You're here, you're listening to a rare, very rare, but brand new episode of Soccer to the Max. Yes, of course, this is me, Eric Watkins. I know you're probably either tired of hearing my voice, in that case too bad, or you've been clamoring to hear my voice again, in which case you're welcome. But naturally, like many other podcasts on this network, I am not here alone. Right next to me is the awesome, the unconventional upper body workout doing Rachel McCreeger.
And by the upper body workout he's mentioning, by the way, shoveling horse manure. So I hope everyone is having an exciting evening, because so far that's what my weekend's been about.
Well, I mean, if you're watching the Colts-Texans game, which is on as I currently speak and record, I bet Texans fans would probably rather be shoveling horse manure. So, 6 of one, half dozen of the other.
True. Silver linings.
Yeah, true. Oh, I still just hope because I bet the over. But, that's beside the point. That is not why we're here. This is Soccer to the Max, and we haven't forgotten the craziness. And I'm gonna forewarn you now. Ben, be prepared. I heard the news. I'm not gonna start with it, but just be prepared.
But we have happier news first.
Yes, we do, like in Columbus, thankfully. Hashtag Crew96.
They did it! They saved the crew!
Now, granted, when I first heard that the Haslam family was going to buy the team, I'm thinking, this is the same group of people that run the Cleveland Browns. We all know how the Cleveland Browns have been the past 20 years, but maybe, just maybe, they might have found a way to turn things around, and maybe a little bit of that magic could help give a boost to an already good Columbus team.
And you know what? Baker Mayfield's feeling dangerous. Columbus could be feeling dangerous.
It really could. I mean, they had a good run this past season, a playoff appearance. Not gonna say who they beat in the playoffs, because again, that's for later, but again, completely beside the point. But overall, it's with this is great news for MLS. This is great news for what is a very passionate, borderline rabid Columbus fan base. And if I remember correctly, there are talks about a new stadium.
Yes, they are mapping out currently what the new map-free stadium is going to be. They're just, getting approvals and stuff from the city. But it all seems really promising, and it sounds really good.
Now, my question is this. If they're building a new map frame, what's going to happen to the current one?
Probably demolition.
Ugh.
Which is a shame, because that's a great stadium.
Yeah, I'm thinking to myself, if they could just work together and build that, kind of like what they're trying to do in Minnesota, I mean, you've got the potential for some good digs if you just invest it.
Right, I mean, that's all speculation. You never know what they can do, but, maybe they're listening to us right now, and maybe they're gonna take our advice.
Yeah, don't turn MapFrey into another RFK. Come on, I have faith in you, Columbus. You're in Ohio. You do things different.
Had to get RFK in there. May she rest in peace.
I can't get away from it. And this is also better news because you don't have to hunt for rivalries, ideally, when you have teams in a league and come into the league. Now, what would they call that when SC Cincinnati comes in? The Buckeye Brawl?
Ooh, that actually sounds pretty good.
It makes the most sense to me. Ohio, Buckeyes, keep the alliteration going.
Yeah, I mean, if Columbus didn't stay there, I just don't know who would have been their rival. Because obviously in the USL, Cincinnati's rival was my Pittsburgh Riverhounds, and it was kind of Louisville City, but those teams aren't going to MLS, especially Pittsburgh, anytime soon.
Mm-hmm.
So it makes sense to have it there, because I don't think Chicago would have been a rival. And I think this rivalry has the potential to live up to something like the New York Derby, the Cascadia Cup, the Portland and Seattle rivalry.
Well, now, and that's true. You have that because you took the words right out of my mouth. Chicago would have been the most logical one, but the cities don't have too much of a history of even really having a beef with each other. So, FC Cincinnati would have been on an island, but now with this, it just falls into place perfectly.
And then, I think the only one I could think of is when Nashville comes into the league. But, again, Nashville, Cincinnati, there's, no history there.
No, leave Nashville on their own. That's what they get.
That's true. We are anti. I'm in the anti-Nashville boat, too. So, with Sean not being here, we finally get to have our anti-Nashville party.
Exactly. And again, to clarify, this is nothing against the town itself. It's great. Wonderful people. It's got a good vibe. But it doesn't translate to soccer. Never has. And in my mind, I don't know if it will.
But Columbus is a soccer town, and it's staying a soccer town, and I'm very excited. Because, what the heck were Columbus residents going to do? Just go to, what is it, the Blues? Or no, that's St. Louis. What are they, the Blue Jackets up there?
Yeah, and I still don't even know why the Columbus Blue Jackets continue to exist.
That's true. True.
Seriously, I think Ohio, I think soccer, I think football. That's about it.
And now we just all the time get to think about the Cleveland Browns.
Again, very, very true, because the Bengals... Alrighty then. Now, one thing, and I know this is really putting it to pre-court, but with Austin FC, yes, Don, you clearly mentioned, like I had been saying for God knows how long, you're not going to stop at 28 teams. It's not in your nature. How many you're going to get away with over the next 7 years, that's going to be the question mark. But for this magical number of slots, I still don't know if Austin FC is automatically going to get one now.
I think it's going to take a lot of work, and I think they should go through the USL Championship first.
Now, granted, and that actually brings about an interesting situation. The 2026 World Cup, as it stands, it's only a little over 7.5 years away. There have been rumblings, as we've talked about before, about a combined North American league with promotion and relegation. If this starts to drum up, would Precourt go ahead and just wait for it to happen? Or, given his history and everything he tried to do with the move from Columbus, does he go ahead and kind of force this issue, knowing that there could be a groundswell already?
I think he's going to force the issue just because of how fast everything is moving with Austin FC. It's just as soon as you heard that this could potentially become a thing, it's here's what they're doing with their stadium. Here's what they're doing with their absolutely awful logo. It's just there was no stopping. It just, everything was already planned out. It seemed like everything had been planned out for years with how fast they put everything out, to be honest with you.
And this is why guys like Precourt, you should be very, very careful when you hand them the keys to a professional franchise. Just taking note, Dawn. Oy, 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 oy. I mean, and this is going to be one of those things that, not just for likes of Columbus or Cincinnati, or even other clubs coming in like Inter Miami. I'm curious because how is this going to play out? What kind of influence are you going to have from Liga MX? And more importantly, how are things like this even going to play out when it comes to Canadian teams and Canadian development? They would fare a lot better in a combined league than having to wait USL Championship, USL1, etc.
Yeah, and I mean, there's really not a lot of room for any more Canadian teams, I would think. Maybe bring back the old FC Edmonton.
Oh, Edmonton. So it's something to keep an eye out for. Right now, this is fantastic news, but I'm always saying, watch how the dominoes are gonna fall. Keep an eye on MLS as a whole, and if these rumblings continue for this North American League, because I've got a few ideas, and especially as they relate to CONCACAF Champions League. People probably won't like them, but they're ideas nonetheless.
Give them a call, Dawn.
I'm serious. Look, US Soccer House, Dawn, everybody, Canada. Look, I can lay out something for you perfectly. And if I'm a Caribbean nation trying to struggle to break through one of these big boys, I would really give me a call, because guess what? My idea helps you more than anybody.
That's true.
But alas, I'll explain to you more off air, just kind of as a sounding board. But here and now, okay, we've been talking about this quite a bit. First of all, the NWSL, another great season in the books. Now the off season, and it seems like there's finally been some coaching moves, which is good.
There's been a couple, but it's very interesting. The only one that has really been public is James Clarkson, who really kind of brought up the whole Houston Dynamo Academy, was hired by the Houston Dash. A lot of people aren't happy about it because, you know, in the in the NWSL, everything has to be female. But he's a male head coach, and a lot of people are not happy about that. But I'm on the side that is happy about that, because I don't like how, you know, it kind of going to the NFL, there's just an exchange of coaches all the time.
Mm-hmm.
If Houston would have gone and said, hey, let's bring in Jim Gabarra, or say Tom Sermani doesn't get hired by the New Zealand national team, let's bring him in, I would not be happy about that, because they got fired for a reason. I think it's a good idea to give somebody like James Clarkson a chance. I'm excited to see what he does. I'm excited to see players that he returns. Fingers crossed that Veronica Latsko, a Pittsburgh native, is one of them. Washington has kind of hired a head coach. I think Washington Post reported that Richie Burke has been hired by the team, but with, let's see, 5 days to the NWSL draft, the club hasn't made an announcement. They did make an announcement that they hired a CEO, though.
Now, hold on. Everything as far as with Houston, that's great. You're bringing in a coach who knows soccer in the area, has a lot of experience in working with young talent. He could truly develop and build a very competitive team in the Dash. But you're less than a week away from, I would hope, acquiring players and drafting players that would either help build your squad or get a core, or accentuate and fill in your different holes that you have. But I would think you would need a coach to at least have some input. Well, why is this a thing? I'm confused.
Because it's the Washington Spirit. Like, they'll announce that they hire a CEO. They're not announcing that they're hiring a head coach, which right now, especially like you said with the draft, is the most important thing right now.
Yeah, I mean, a CEO, fine. Head of an organization, manages a lot of things at the top level, great. But those effects don't trickle down but so far.
And then you've got Orlando, who doesn't even have a coach. Yeah, give you another grumbling for Orlando there, Erik.
Why is it? It's bad enough that Ben finds ways to personally torture me. Orlando is good. Why are both teams are finding ways to break my heart? What's going on? Is something happening at City that transferred over to the Pride? Is this some kind of thing? Is this like Plague Evolution thing I need to keep an eye on? What is happening?
Maybe they were waiting for Mourinho to get fired.
Like he would actually... I just... No! Don't even... No! God, that is wrong on so many levels.
I just want to know who's going to be drafting players. Like, did they even hire a GM yet?
Not that I've heard. Wait a minute. Who would he... You know, that's actually a good question. Who would actually be in the room?
Yeah, that's what I'm curious about. I don't know if when Sermani got fired, if his whole team got fired too, like his whole assistant coaches or anything. I'm not seeing anything about... The last thing that they did was they hired Louise Muzzy as EVP of soccer operations.
She would probably have to be the one then. That would be my only guess.
I don't know who else would do it, but okay. Yeah. That'll be interesting.
Yeah, because that's like the closest thing you have to where at some clubs you have a director of soccer or director of football. I mean,
God, oh my God, imagine if, like, Orlando sent in James O'Connor, the head coach of the men's team, to go draft for the women's team. Oh my God. I think I would actually have a stroke.
I
just feel like that's something very Orlando-ish.
No. Don't even put that in the universe, because next thing you know, it'll happen, and then I'm going to be even more miserable over the next several months.
I know, that's bad mojo.
No. Way too much bad mojo on that one.
I know, I need to get some sage.
He can't even get the men's team together. What did the guy...
I need to get some darn sage.
Yes, sage.
And I need to send it down to Orlando.
Sage,
my goodness.
Sweetgrass, the whole works. Trust me. Now, kind of sticking with the women's side of things. I get fandom. I happen to be a part of a lot of, sometimes albeit very strange, very unique fandoms. But I am one to recognize this within myself. And I know when to take a step back and be logical and rational. Rachel, I've known you for quite some time. I can pretty safely speak that you're the same way.
Yes.
That said, the U.S. women's national team, there's a major disconnect going on. Whereas for the men's team, you have hardcore fans, but the majority, you could say, a lot of apathy. That's one problem. But to create a sort of a weird comic anime-like fangirl universe for the players, that's really next level. And,
creepy.
That's beyond creepy. I don't even know what to say. It's just like, how did we get here? What if any of this makes sense? What switches got flipped? Because this is just a whole bunch of...
So what my awesome co-host is talking about is there is an Instagram page called American Supporters, and they put on their Instagram story, and I'd like to preface by saying that I've been saying this for years. Truly, I have been saying this for years, ever since the 15 World Cup. And to kind of break it down, I'm going to say some parts of it, but I'm going to generally paraphrase it. They had essentially said that the big thing that's holding back the United States women's national team is the fangirls. And while they do have the interest in supporting the club or country, they only care about treating players as celebrities. And these are, like, this is I would probably say about 80% of the fan group around the United States women's national team. They wrote, while it's great they're supporting the U.S. women's national team, there's no greater team to support. They only care about obsessing over Alex Morgan and pretend she's dating Carly Lloyd or some shit. Not only does this make people lose respect for the women's game, but they do nothing to acknowledge the widespread problems in women's soccer. The U.S. women's national team has the best women's soccer in the world, but let's stop pretending there's not systematic issues holding them back. And then they continue to say that it's okay to be pissed off about players not getting paid, players not getting marketed, players not getting supported, having to have all of these players go to Australia in the off season just to make ends meet and to get another paycheck. It's okay to be pissed off that Ada Hegerberg was asked if she can twerk after winning the first Ballon d'Or for women. But then they said, let's stop obsessing over often made-up dating relationships between U.S. women's national team players, and let's get to work fixing rampant flaws that plague the women's game. I've seen a lot of this firsthand, and another portion of this that I want to bring up, and I've had a lot of friends who covered the U.S. women's national team agree with me. You cannot give constructive criticism to anyone on the U.S. women's national team because of these fangirls. I tweet something about Tobin Heath or Ashlyn Harris. I'm getting called every name in the book. I'm being seen as a pariah just because I have a different opinion. And the reason why I'm getting all of this stuff hurled my way and other people in the media or just actual, real, genuine fans is because we're knocking on their favorite player and they think that player is the best thing in the world. But really, you have players like Ashlyn Harris, who, I'm not afraid to say this, are overhyped because of their looks. And I think the worst thing is whenever fans call myself and other members of media or whatever anti-U.S. women's national team. I'm the farthest thing from it. But I'm going to give critique where critique is deserved. I've said it on this podcast. I've said it in articles. And Carly Lloyd has me blocked on Twitter for saying it, that Carly Lloyd has not been the same since 2015, and she's not the player she used to be. She shouldn't even be on the World Cup roster, in my opinion. But I'm getting called anti-U.S. women's national team because I give that criticism. That's not how it works. The U.S. soccer fandom, there's a difference between fans and fandoms. and it's really hard to like being a fan of the team whenever you have these preteen teenage girls who are obsessing over the fact that Crystal Dunn didn't get married to Christian Press this past weekend, but to the actual like love of her life. It's annoying. It makes being a U.S. women's national team fan really hard sometimes.
And I see this a lot of times, not just in women's soccer, but all throughout aspects of women's athletics. In everything soccer, basketball, all the way down to, and yes, this is a real incident that happened in the Olympics back in Sochi, long track speed skating. I'll tell you more about that later. But I get that for all of this push is just for equality, being recognized in everything in what you do. Yes, you should be paid at an equal level competitively. Yes, I agree with all these things. But at the same time, why should these fans, especially those, as you said, the preteens and teen girls, who they're in this phase in their life to where they're looking for someone to idolize. And a lot of times, and it's the same thing for preteen and teen boys, athletes become those first major idols after your parents. That is how we as humans operate. But going to that, that's normal. But creating this to where it's only this bubble, that doesn't make any sense. Because again, you're going to face some of these criticisms. Some just, some unjust. Everybody is. But if you have someone that wants to see the growth of a team, the betterment of a team, continued success of a team, yes, there's going to be these criticisms because no team is ever really perfect. There's always things that can be fixed. Being just upon that and having someone call you out just for saying, hey, we need to fix this, you need to step back and look at yourself.
And it gets to the point too, and I know this is a very sensitive subject for people, and we talked about it in the group chat. Like Erik said, we are all about equality on this podcast. Mm-hmm. I don't care who you are. If you have respect for me, I'm going to have respect for you. I don't believe in racism, prejudice, homophobia, any of that. But let's look at the case of Jaylene Hinkle. You've got somebody who said they don't want to play for the U.S. women's national team because of the rainbow numbers. Do I personally agree with that decision? No, I don't think it was the right decision, but I'm not going to harp her. These so-called fans are booing her every single game that she touches the ball, and like, you can't say her name and associate yourself as a women's soccer fan. Meanwhile, you've got her teammates, you've got her coach. Jessica McDonald came out and said, listen, she's not homophobic to anybody in our locker room. There has been no drama because of this, and she has told fans, quit trying to make drama where there is not drama. You don't want what's happening with my Pittsburgh Steelers to be happening anywhere else. Believe me, it's a circus.
Facts.
But these fans, and I'm going to say the H word, it is straight up harassment. You're booing this player every single chance you get. Just let it go. She's under a microscope. I get it, because she is in the public eye. I understand that. We're all technically in the public eye. Guess what? People that go to these soccer games, they might just be homophobic, and it's just not fair to me that she gets booed every single game. It's like, grow up and get over it. I get that you're upset with the decision, but at the end of the day, it's not your decision. If anything, it's just her missing out on an opportunity with the team. I think she's only been called up once since then. That's her own damn fault. Let her live with that. And she has willingly said, okay, I live with that. But she shouldn't have to be harassed every single game because of a decision she made.
No, and I think that's great. It is a decision that she knows she's living with. That's a key opportunity that she's missing out on, especially going into a World Cup year. I sit back and say, alright, I don't like it, I don't agree with it, but you do you. As long as you get it, which she does, I'm okay with that. But this is the big problem that, yes, it's great to crusade and campaign and champion a cause. That's what we need to do, especially now. But you can't let this idea of collectivism invade every single aspect where it doesn't have a place. If you're truly, and I mentioned this specifically in the group chat, if you truly have the classical liberal mindset of, especially as long as you're not hurting anybody and you're doing okay, you as an individual should be able to live life as you please and work on that, that's one thing. But if you're getting to this idea of being hyper-progressive and hyper-collective to where, hey, this one person disagrees, we must cast them out, that's a sign to where everything is going to go wrong. Because,
Well, I'm sorry, go ahead.
no, I was just going to say, if you're turning on, just as an athlete, it was like with Hinkle, who's to say that if you have a dissenting opinion, these same group of people won't turn on you?
And it's hypocrisy at its finest. You claim to be so accepting to everyone. She made a decision. It's hers that she lives with. It happened, almost 2 years ago now?
Mm-hmm.
Like, it's truly, I really thought whenever Jessica McDonald and Paul Riley and even McCall Zerboni all came out and said something, that it was going to drop and people were going to stop booing her. But man, those, especially in Portland, gosh, those fans are relentless. Like, it's really, and at the same time, you're not making your club look good and you're not making yourself look good. Like, who are you trying to impress by doing this? And you know what? Those fangirls that we were talking about, they're probably going to come after us on this show for quote unquote defending Jaylene Hinkle. I'm not defending what she did by any means. I'm defending her as a human being who has feelings and emotions, and NWSL's out here trying to promote not bullying. Well, this is bullying at its finest.
It really is. And for places that really, what do they have to do at the place where they're watching the game? What do they have as an effect in the grand scheme of things that they're booing her? How did it affect them? And you're absolutely right. You don't like the decision. I don't like the decision. But she has a right to make that decision. Let her decide that for herself.
Oh my. Maybe something that we say will get across. Fangirls, if you're listening, tone it down. Everyone who watches Jaylene Hinkle play, just get over it. She's not physically hurting you. You're fine.
Exactly. Put that yandere power to something else. And I was going to say something there. Never mind.
That's probably a safe bet.
Yeah, especially after a funny incident last night to where, if you happen to listen to the kickoff, oh boy, the material that's just forever in the archives. But you can listen to what is there, along with Soccer to the Max, at the W2M Network, W2Mnet.com. Oh, now that that's out of the way,
let's set the stage for your Ben rant.
Oh god.
And then we can end the show on a high note talking about our buddy Christian Pulisic.
Good idea. Where do I begin? So, among the coaching carousel announcements and everything that's been going on, there's been similar moves in MLS. DC United. Well, Ben, He's going to be around another 2 years. His contract got extended to 2021. If I remember correctly.
Yes, that sounds right.
Okay. Say that you were with the team for a while. You had average amount of success. You made the playoffs a few times, but overall you were, what was it? 95 wins, 69 draws, and 108 losses in your tenure.
Ouch.
Would you, as a coach, knowing that you had that, again, you had a run, you just made the playoffs last season, after missing it for 3 years, after making it for 3 straight years, you'd expect to be on thin ice, right?
Yes.
If you had a season to where in 34 matches, you won exactly 3, you'd expect to potentially be fired, right?
Yes.
So to DC United, this is what Ben has done for you. That 3-win season was really a thing. He is 13 games under 500 as a head coach. I understand. He's been with your organization forever. Great. He was an assistant coach. Great. Midfielder. Great. But look at the entire body of work. Yes, Wayne Rooney came in. Yes, that was fantastic. But what happened? You had to rally, go on an insane winning an unbeaten run to go from the cellar in the East just to get above the red line and into the playoffs. Then what happens? Right at the knockout round, poof, everything goes away. I have seen time and time and again, getting my hopes up, disappointment, failure. I know that an organization craves stability, but that stability usually leads to growth in some form or fashion. What on God's green earth is the growth at DC? Ooh, we got Audi Field. We got this. We got that. We're in an SSS. Whoop-de-flippin' do! Who isn't? And what the hell was wrong with RFK? Now you're going to get to the point to where people wouldn't show up at what you feel is a crappy stadium. How is it going to be when fans don't show up at Audi Field? Do you really think that with everything going on in DC that they're really going to stick around if you crap the bed and go 2 wins in your first 12 to start 2019? That's possible, Ben. Come on now. DC United, I have followed you for so long. I have followed you growing up. I have talked many a times about the Stitcher's Nightmares on this podcast and otherwise. When DC was in its heyday, I was one of the first to see Freddie Adu when he stepped out onto the pitch the first time as a professional. I have done so much in loving this club. What has it done for me? What have you as an organization done for me except put me to the range where I almost have heart attacks? You know how hard that is with my blood pressure? Come on now. And now you're doing this. So focused on shiny and new and preparing for everything as a country, you're not understanding what you need to prepare for as a club. You've tried with Ben. It's not working with Ben. When are you going to wake up and realize that? I gotta deal with 2 more years of this shit.
I have to admit, that was a lot more tame than I thought it was going to be.
Yeah, well, it's been a bit of a long day, and I'm still somewhat sober, so there's that.
Yeah, that'll help. The only thing I have to say is that this contract wouldn't have happened without Wayne Rooney. So he should be giving Wayne Rooney a nice little What do English people like? Do they like fruit baskets?
I don't know. I don't know that English or that fruit baskets. It's not much of an English thing. I think that's just us here in the States.
Well, Ben can give him a good old American fruit basket.
Yeah, because it kind of...
That sounds really dirty. I don't know.
You know, come to think of it, wait. Never mind. Anyways. I mean,
shall we move to happier news?
Technically, if you consider that MU, there's actually something there, but again, and to just punctuate before we move on, he should be lucky he was only making $400,000 a year. God knows if you're giving that man millions of dollars, I don't even want to think about it. But along the lines of millions of dollars, our wonder kid, Christian Pulisic. I don't like the particular club that he's going to. I wish it was, maybe one along the lines of someone random like, I don't know, Manchester United. But, again, that's beside the point. Chelsea eyed him. They are paying a boatload of money. What, like 73 million?
73,064 euro.
Yeah, wait. 73,064,000. Why the extra 64?
I don't know. Well, I think that's just, I don't know. I see numbers and my mind shuts off.
Yeah, because I'm thinking, it's like, it's not even enough to cover the plane ticket from Dortmund over to London, so, but, again, this is a big move, not just for him and to better himself, especially going from the Bundesliga, which is one of Europe's top 5 leagues, and it's a great league, but for someone as young as Pulisic at only 20, to get this move to what is a very quick, very physical Premier League, I think that's going to be a plus, and I really think the men's national team will reap benefits.
I think so too. I agree with you that I would not rather see him at Chelsea. I would have loved to see him at Liverpool with Klopp.
Ugh.
I know, I'm sorry. I think Klopp is really good with young players. But, like, I would have had him move to the Premier League in, 2 years. I don't think he's really earned anything in terms of titles or anything with Dortmund. Granted, they're in a really good place to win the whole thing this year, but I don't know. I'm on the fence about it. I am warming up to it a little bit. I'm excited to see what he does. I'll definitely be tuning in. I'm never going to be a Chelsea fan. I'm a Pulisic fan, not a Chelsea fan.
Okay, well, I do want to get your perspective in these terms because while I am more following of the Premier League, you stick to and you love the Bundesliga. So
yes,
you have to admit, especially over the past decade or so, the Bundesliga has become pretty much a one-team league with Bayern.
Yes.
So, was it more comforting to know, because you mentioned about not really winning titles at Dortmund, a fair assessment, but outside of Bayern, who is really winning titles in Germany?
But Dortmund came close to it the last 2-3 years. They came really, really close to it. And I think the closest they got was, last season. I mean, it's not something that's out of the blue. It's not something that just can't happen. I mean, I think, in a way, Bayern is kind of put on this totem pole that, well, yes, they have deserved it because of titles, they're not unbeatable. I mean, remember when Borussia Mönchengladbach, nobody thought they were going to do it. That was like 3 years ago? I just remember Vent and Fabian Johnson scoring. I don't remember who the first goal was from. Probably Stindl, or no, Raphael, I think it was. But nobody thought they were going to win. There's been some upsets, and like, you know, right now this season, looking at the table, it's 42 Dortmund with points, I should say, 42, Bayern with 36. That's a pretty decent gap. I mean, granted, you still have like 18, 19 matches to go, and Gladbach's hot in the race too with 33, but like, it wasn't undoable last year. It wasn't undoable the year before. But Dortmund has come very close to it. And I mean, looking even at the season, is Pulisic even going to be on the pitch during a so-called maybe tiebreaker game, a championship game? Because he's not a regular starter anymore. Jadon Sancho has really slid into that spot. Mahmoud Dahoud has also slid into that spot. It's very... I can see why he moved, but I also don't like why he moved. I'm very indifferent about it. I'm more or less just eager to see what he does at the end of this season and then what he does next season. Because, you know, as we know, Chelsea's very famous for loaning out and then just selling their players. That's what they did with Miazga. But then you've got players like Andreas Christensen. They loaned him out to Gladbach for 2, 3, I think 3, maybe 4 years, and then they brought him back, and he's been playing with the first team ever since. So it could really go any way.
Right, and that is one other aspect, and that's why I kind of lean it towards this, where, yes, finally after all this time, Bayern are getting challengers, but over in the Premier League in England, say he does, at least for the first season, before they decide to loan him out, say he does stick with Chelsea, instantly, Chelsea's one of those, the big six, along with, you know, Manchester City, United, Liverpool, Tottenham, Arsenal, even though they've kind of faded back a bit, and they're towards the bottom of that big six. But you're in the mix, and you're going to be in the mix every single season, and you are more likely to win titles with Chelsea being one of those big six than on a more regular basis as you're approaching your prime than you would with Dortmund over in Germany. This is how I feel. I think it's a beneficial move from that aspect because you're already right there. Now,
Right.
how long he'll be able to be with the team initially? He may go down to the reserves. He may be loaned out. I would hope not like this first season. Let him at least get a little bit of taste of Premier League football. Then you decide to do whatever. Then you make a deal where you loan him back out to Dortmund. Who knows? But I'm just saying, for something like this, over the longer course of his development for that club legacy, it would be more beneficial, at least in my opinion, at Chelsea than at Dortmund.
Yeah, I mean that's a good argument.
So from there, either way, kudos to him. And again, we as far as the national team going into this World Cup cycle, we won't see benefits immediately. But as we're nearing towards, Gold Cup and tournaments like that, with that style of play, all right. Now we're talking and we're going to be seeing something. And hopefully, since Pulisic is one of those guys, for that younger core and this next generation we're trying to build around, that's going to be a definite plus.
Yeah, I'm excited to see how he mixes in with those young players. That's gonna be exciting.
Yes, and it's gonna be fun to watch. And
it's either gonna work out really well or it's gonna be really bad. So.
Yeah, I'm hoping the former, but if the latter happens, then Oy. If something like that happens, then US Soccer is really going to be on a precipice, if that's the case.
Yeah. It'll be interesting for sure.
Yeah. Well, this is another not as short, hopefully sweet episode. I think we covered everything. I mean, any other kind of coaching chaos that we touched on or didn't touch on? I hope I'm not forgetting anything.
I totally forgot to mention, just going to the NWSL real quick. We will get into this deeper into our next show. But there is a lot of players leaving Sky Blue. You know how we talked about the terrible conditions that they had. The Equalizer put out a really good story about it. My friends over there. So far, Katie Johnson, Rebecca Stott, and Amanda Frisbee are leaving Sky Blue FC for Europe. And that's just the beginning of many, many more. So that's something that we're going to have to keep our eyes on.
That's not good, especially if Sky Blue wants to kind of stick around just as a franchise.
Gosh, I don't even know if they're going to be a thing this season.
Oh, you don't want that level of messiness just when you as a league have achieved the stability that the NWSL has. I'm hoping someone at the top will intervene if that's the case. Hoping?
Who knows?
Oh, yeah. And the plot thickens. But, alas, that will be for future shows as we just about run out of time for this one. Rachel, other than sitting down here and doing this little shindig with me, where can our devoted, as they should be, listeners find you?
They can find me on Twitter. It is at Rachael McCrigger, 2 A's, not 1. You can find some of my work at Last Word on Soccer, where I'm going to be cranking out a few more season and reviews. I got the NWSL draft coming up on Thursday, so it's going to be a pretty busy week. MLS Multiplex, Pittsburgh Soccer Now, and Pittsburgh Sportscastle. And, of course, Soccer to the Max and W2M Network.
And, of course, this is Eric Watkins at Squid Sportshead on Twitter. Soccer to the Max, as we can sit down and do these shows. Hopefully,
sorry.
No worries. I'm surprised it hasn't happened with me yet. For the kickoff, go back, listen to our latest episode we just recorded as we're previewing these wildcard round games of the playoffs. We're winding down with our season. Hopefully, Sean at some point will help get around to doing football to the max. Hopefully, I can get my sound effects and everything ready to bring back Point of Viewer because shenanigans have been in a high the last few months. I'll say that. But, alas, as all of those get together, we shall depart here. So, for Rachel and myself, hope you enjoyed. Like, subscribe, iTunes, Stitcher, Spreaker, you name it, we're on it. Search for us, and peace.
Peace.
The following podcast is a W2M Network original
That
production.
was a good one.
Visit
Almost an hour.
W2Mnet.com
That
for all
was
of
a
our
good
other great
one.
podcasts, plus news, reviews, articles, and opinions
So
from the
let's
worlds
see,
of
what were
wrestling,
the
video
two
games,
things I
football,
wanted
and
to
entertainment.
really highlight?